You've got questions, we've got answers.
And I think that makes your pathway to university a lot easier.
The brain,
A voice.
Especially the first year if you pick the right subjects in year 11 and 12.
Information.
Here, and those signals run down through the spine.
Here in
They
our
then
studio,
exit from these
we'll be
spinal
bringing you
nerves,
the
which
answer to
feeds
these
into
questions
the
and more.
spinal nerve.
Join us for InfoMate. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to another episode of InfoMate. Now, when it comes to waste, mankind is brilliant at creating it. In fact, Australians produce over 2,000 kilograms of waste each year. And in the next 20 years, we're going to consume as much as we have since the dawn of mankind. Now, with so much product being consumed and so much waste being produced, it's inevitable that some of this waste will find its way onto the streets. Now, what can we do? Well, in 1989, one Australian had an idea to clean up his own backyard. Now, this idea, over the years now, has become Australia's largest community-based environmental event, Clean Up Australia Day. Now, today we're lucky enough to be joined with the chairman and founder of Clean Up Australia Day, Ian Kernan, the managing director of Clean Up Australia Day, Terry Ann, and the director of charities for the Ahmadiyyat Muslim youth, Musawwir Bajwa. Thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Now, Ian, if you could tell us a bit about the history, what made you start Clean Up Australia Day?
Well, I am a builder by trade, but I've also been a professional yachtsman, and in 1986-87 I sailed solo around the world and saw the state of the world's oceans. And I was so concerned by it that I decided that I wanted to do something about it. And so we got it going. We got some money together from Macca's, and we got the people really wanted to do it.
Yep.
They flocked to it, and we had a giant success on our hands.
Wow. So in 1989, what was the attendance that you had there in Darling Harbour site?
Well, around the harbour, there was
Yep.
about 40,000 people. So it wasn't just one location.
Yep.
So what happened was they called for the people of Sydney to come to Sydney Harbour, not realising quite how big Sydney Harbour is.
Wow.
So there were people scattered all around the harbour, and about 40,000 people turned up.
Wow. On the first event, the
Yeah.
first time it was organised. So over the years, Ian, have you seen much improvement?
Oh, a huge improvement, an increase in the numbers of volunteers, but it's more than that.
Yep.
Because what the people take home from the event is awareness of the scale of the problem and a desire to do even more.
Wow.
And that's a great strength.
That's excellent.
That puts us on a growth pattern.
Wow. So, Terry Ann, what are the numbers that we're looking at for 2018?
So this year we think we'll get close to 600,000 volunteers.
Wow.
So that's a huge commitment by the people of Australia
Yep.
to go out there, and they find the location. So they go out and they look around them and they see where the rubbish is accumulating. They register that location, and then they rope in all their friends and colleagues and family
Yep.
to come out on the day and pick up the rubbish. So it's a big effort.
That's extraordinary. Now, they're all volunteers, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, everyone's a volunteer.
Wow. And now, Musawwir as well, what's our Jamaat's involvement been with Clean Up
Our
Australia
Jamaat's
Day?
involvement with Clean Up Australia Day spans as far as back 1989. When Ian initiated in 1989 at the Darling Harbour, our volunteers were the first one present over there as well.
Wow.
In 2018,
Yep.
our Jamaat's involvement is likely to grow.
Yep.
We have about 28 to 29 sites spread across all Australia.
Excellent.
And with about at least 2,000 volunteers that
Yep.
will be taking part from within the community in all these 28 sites.
Excellent. Now, Ian, I'd imagine that to organise an event of such a magnitude and such scale comes with its own costs as the event grows. How are some of these costs covered? Is it by the community itself?
What we've found is that the media have been a fantastic partner in this.
Wow.
They've really wanted to do it.
Yep.
Because they recognise that this is important to everyday
community,
people,
yeah.
and they want to do something about it.
Yep.
And they did, and so thank you to the media.
Yep. So you've had some sponsors come on board and help you over the years?
Oh, absolutely. Macca's has been primary sponsor,
Yep.
and we've had other sponsors that are most valuable.
Okay, excellent.
So this year we've got some great relationships in place. So we're working with Cleanaway.
Yep.
So they'll be taking away a lot of the rubbish, and
Yep.
particularly here in New South Wales, they'll be actively involved in the container refund scheme. So
Yep.
this year, for the first time, we'll be able to cash in those bottles and cans, and we're
Oh,
going to be
excellent.
encouraging the volunteers to do that.
Yep.
and make a bit of pocket money on the side for themselves.
That's excellent.
So yeah, so we have Cleanaway, we have Shopper Docket,
Yep.
we have McDonald's, as Ian's mentioned. We also have all those wonderful people who donate. So we're not government funded.
Yep.
So what it is we really rely on that corporate sponsorship and those
Yep.
people who donate to us, because it costs about $1.7 million a year
Wow.
to run Clean Up Australia. And what we've undertaken to do, and what Ian promised from the beginning, was that we would provide free materials
Yep.
to all of the groups across the country. So
Okay.
we continue to do that as long as we can raise the money to fund those materials.
Excellent.
And some of which are donated to us. So we're very fortunate.
Excellent. So Terry, what happens with all the rubbish after it's collected?
Well, what happens is the councils, and this is where our partnership with councils is so very important. So
Yep.
the councils will collect all the rubbish. So you'll tell us where you're going to leave your rubbish, and the council trucks will come along and pick it all up that night or the next morning. And then what they do is they then take it to their waste management depots, and
Yep.
it's all sorted. So things that are in the yellow bags, in most cases they'll try and sort them through. So they'll separate out all the glass and the metals and the plastics,
Yep.
and they'll get them back into the recycling stream. In the cases of what's in the white bags, that all tends to go to landfill,
Oh, okay.
because that's stuff that's too contaminated to do anything with.
It's
Timing is
unfortunate.
really important in this.
Yep.
We've got to get that waste, collected waste, off the site and
Yep.
away and recycled, because otherwise, out come the Holden mudguards and the mattresses and
Yep.
all the old junk from around the family home,
Yep.
and we don't want that,
No.
because it'll just put a huge strain on our resources,
Yep.
and it will defeat the whole purpose of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, well, it's amazing. I mean, I remember last year when we were doing it in our areas. It's just the amount of rubbish that you don't realise it when you're walking past or driving down the street, but when you're there with a stick, with your hands and gloves trying to pick it up,
Yeah.
you realise that how quickly you can fill a
So
big
it's
bag.
educational,
Yeah, it is.
Yep.
It's extraordinary.
absolutely.
Yeah, fossicking amongst all those bushes and things is a really rewarding thing to do, because,
Yep.
as you say, you don't see it. The other rewarding thing is to start looking at it from the eyes of a child.
Yep.
So you start looking at it from someone smaller than you, and you see things that you hadn't seen before,
Yeah.
and it's really quite eye-opening.
It is. It is. And Mustafa, so this year, from the Jamaat perspective, how many sites have we got?
We've got
going?
about 28 sites as compared to 26 last year.
Yep.
And we're planning to have about 2,000 volunteers at least.
Wow.
Last year we did about, on the 26 sites, we did about, I think, 2,000 kgs of rubbish. That's
Yep.
2 tons of rubbish that we took off from as part of the volunteers that were organized by the community.
Yep.
And this year at least we're hoping from these 2,000 volunteers, we're hoping to go 3,000 kg, that's 3 tons of rubbish
Wow.
across all these sites. And
How many hours have these volunteers put in over the years?
over the years, that's quite really a lot of man hours.
Yeah.
Recently, I did a whole stat check,
Yep.
and since 1989, the
Yep.
community's man hours has been 42,500.
Wow.
That's just the volunteer man hours
Yep.
that's been put up by the community.
Yep.
And we've raised over $9,000 over those years, because the focus is completely towards
Cleaning the rubbish up.
cleaning the rubbish, and what comes by it is fundraising those
Yep.
who cannot actually take part
Yep.
in the cleanup. So
Yep.
they do their part within the community. And that's what I tend to engage the community members with. Those who
Yep.
cannot take part, they should focus, at least take part by donating some money. So $9,000 what we did since
excellent.
1999.
Wow.
And that's what we've
Brilliant.
done.
Now, Terry Ann, with all this rubbish that we're collecting and the volunteers that are helping, now it's not just people who can volunteer their time. Who else can get involved? Do businesses get involved as well?
Yes, on Tuesday there'll be a lot of businesses going out. So
Yep.
what'll happen there is that they often will clean up a local park or a bushland or something near their office,
Yep.
and that's their way of giving back to the community. So that's very
excellent.
visual
Yep.
on them being able to do that. Others will register their location on a weekend,
Yep.
and so they'll then invite all the families of their employees and maybe their suppliers, and they'll make a big day of it.
Customers.
And customers. So it's a
Wow.
really great way of team building
Yep.
to be able to do that. And then so they'll again probably clean up on an outside site. Some of them will choose to do their own campus, so their own building maybe.
Yep.
But the deal there is if you choose to stay on site, then you have to introduce 3 new sustainable practices within the next 12 months.
Wow.
And that, depending on where you are on the journey, can start with no more polystyrene cups or double-sided printing,
Yep.
or you could go the full hog like Qantas did and bring in a tri-generation unit when they built their new campus out
What's
at
that?
Mascot. So that's a tri-generation unit, is where it captures all of the waste on site and turns it into energy.
Oh, well,
So that makes them completely self-sustainable and off the grid for that campus.
That's waste to resource.
yep. So that's not, their waste isn't going to landfill?
No,
or something?
nothing.
extraordinary.
Everything is kept on site, and that includes wet waste as well. So
Yeah.
it's all waste on their site
Wow.
is treated on site and turned into energy, and so they don't take any electricity off the grid.
Oh,
It's
excellent.
pretty exciting.
Yep.
That's fairly extreme as well.
Yep.
On the Friday, we'll have the schools. So we've got just over 2,000 schools.
Yep.
Will be out there, and that's primary schools, primary. So it's still
Yep.
pretty fun, bit
Yeah.
of fun when you're in primary
Yeah,
school
for the young
to
kids.
pick up rubbish. And the thing there is that's really great, because these kids suddenly start to realise that that little piece of paper that they dropped, or the lolly wrapper, or the paddle pop stick,
Yep.
it didn't go away. So neither an adult didn't pick it up, and they couldn't coerce their little brothers and sisters to pick it up. They have to pick it up themselves.
Yeah.
And it really does demonstrate to them that everything they do has an impact, and what's more, they can be part of the
Yeah,
solution.
it gives them
so
a
it's
bit
a
more
really great thing.
responsibility as
Yeah.
kids. So every year we do businesses get involved, schools get involved,
Yeah.
the community gets involved.
Yeah, and then we have our youth groups, and this is where it's really important, because this is future proofing.
Yep.
So what we need to do is we need to make collecting rubbish cool
Yeah.
for teenagers, because we tend to lose them at that period of
Yep.
time. So it's really important that we make it exciting for teenagers, and that's why we're doing things like the Snap It, Clean It
Yep.
through Instagram this year. So they'll snap and show what rubbish they've collected, and they have to take all the small bits and turn it into a map of Australia, snap it, send it to us, and one of them will win a camera, a Canon camera. So
Excellent.
it's a way of just trying to make it a bit more engaging
Yeah.
for teenagers. Give it a bit of fun.
Excellent. And Ian, so over the years, we started with Clean Up Australia Day back in Darling Harbour in '89. Where else have we gone with the Clean Up brand?
Well, you see, Australians hate being told what to do, and they do. They really despise it,
Yep.
and we haven't done that.
Yep.
The people select the sites. The people provide the volunteers.
Yep.
The people make it happen. It's theirs.
Yeah. So
And
you
that's
put
a
the
great
onus back
strength.
on them. Yeah.
It's a great strength.
So have you taken it further than Australia?
Yes, it's global now. We're in 177 countries,
Wow.
and it's very well supported.
Excellent. So they follow the same format. They get involved in their local communities.
Yeah, we give them the basic formula, but they can interpret it however they want.
Wow.
And if it's got to fit with their religion, with their overall behaviour.
Yep.
And that's what's happening. So they have an input.
Yeah.
They're not being told what to do.
Yep.
So the Northern Hemisphere tends to run in September.
Oh, okay.
So they'll run in their summer
Yep.
months, and they'll do clean-up sites, they'll run education programs. A great one was in Singapore, where they ran an eradication of plastic bags program,
Yep.
and they ran it around a health issue rather than a waste issue, because plastic bags accumulate, the water accumulates in them,
Yep.
and that's where the mosquitoes breed. So how they ran it there was a mosquito eradication program,
Yep.
but the whole idea behind it was to get rid of plastic bags. So it's just a different way of engaging with the community to
Yep.
get the solution that you're looking for.
Oh, excellent. And Mustafa, if the community wants to get involved, how can they get involved? How can they volunteer?
Well, as Ian mentioned,
Yep.
the community and whoever's taking part in the cleanup day,
Yep.
they register their own site.
Yep.
So what I've done is I've created team leaders in
Yep.
different areas of suburbs,
Yep.
and the local community members, they just contact their team leaders in order to get involved.
Oh, excellent.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Terry Ann, for the wider community, if they can't get involved, the donations also make a big contribution?
Makes a huge difference, because we have a pledge that 100% of every single dollar that people donate to us
Yep.
goes straight into providing materials for communities. And so it's not spent on any infrastructure or overheads.
Not the phone,
Purely-
not the postage.
Wow.
It goes directly to the ground.
100%. That's
100%
extraordinary
of
for
every
any
single dollar.
organisation.
And that's really important that
Yeah.
we do that and we follow through, and every dollar counts.
Yeah.
It's very, very important, because so long as we can continue to provide those free materials,
Yep.
we'll continue to grow the organisation.
So what are some of the materials that the communities need to get involved?
So the prime thing for us is safety. So
Yep.
it's really important that when the sites are registered, that they're checked to make sure they're safe.
Yep.
And then we send out a kit of it. It's like a starter pack.
Yep.
So it's not enough for you guys because you're so much bigger, the sites. But we send out some bags. So there's yellow bags for the recycling and there's white bags for the non-recycling. And this year we're trialling some bags that have clear backs so that people can actually see what's in the bags as a further way of educating people as just to what they're removing.
Yep.
There's some gloves to keep you safe. There are sharps containers if you think you're likely to pick up anything that's sharp. There's a high-vis, very attractive high-vis vest that people can wear. And that's where, particularly if you're cleaning up along a roadway,
Yep.
that's very important. And also to identify who is the go-to person on site.
Yeah.
That's the one in the bright vest.
Yeah.
And then there's also the paperwork which we send out, which is how to run a safe location,
Yep.
how to sign people in and out, and also some promotional material.
Oh, that's excellent.
It's part of that.
And you did mention it before as well, but recently New South Wales came on board with the Northern Territory and South Australia regarding the container deposit scheme. So if they bring an eligible bottle back, they get 10 cents.
Yep.
And now you're going to encourage that this year as well? To push for
Absolutely.
the separation and collecting that 10-cent refund?
This is
Instead of seeing a bit of rubbish, you're seeing money.
Yeah,
It's not going to lie on the street or on the beach
that's
or
it.
in the park.
Yeah,
It's gone.
that is. So the scheme must be helping get some of that rubbish off even before it lands on the streets. You would
well, it
assume.
does.
Yeah, and then it turned into money.
Yeah, oh, that's good.
So
good for
we'll
them.
see, we expect, what happened in Northern Territory when it came in a few years ago was that we saw a huge spike in the number of bottles and cans that were reported. And so people were saying, oh gosh, it's not working. There's a lot out there. But what's happened is people are starting to dig around, look for stuff.
Yep.
So they'll be actively extracting bottles and cans. So this year in New South Wales, we're encouraging people to bring those bottles and cans back, cash them in, pocket it, go and buy yourself a cup of coffee, that's great. Or you can donate it to charity of your choice. And what we want to talk to you about is we might try and get a couple of pop-up collection centres on one of your sites. So what will happen is that all of your community can bring their bottles and cans in that day, cash them in, and it can all go to wherever you want it to go. And they can, so we'll just have a little pop-up collection that we'll provide for you guys.
No, that'd be excellent. So the community can get involved.
Yeah, and,
Even our local
and it shows
communities.
them what they can actually do. Because
Yeah.
what we're finding with New South Wales is the rollout is taking a fair bit of time. There's a lot of infrastructure involved in the rollout.
Yeah.
And so people are coming back to us saying, got bottles and cans, not too sure where to take them, can't take them. So we'll, over clean-up day, we're going to have 10 pop-up locations. So we'll talk to you. You're a priority. And then also, the reverse vending machines where you put it in, you get your money out.
Get your
We
money
have
back.
it in one of the big sites, I think, where
Yeah.
most of our volunteers are gathered,
go
and
to.
we can get one of them other sites to come over there as well.
That's right.
Excellent.
That's what we thought we'd have a chat to you
We'll
about.
have a chat in detail later on.
Yeah, we
as
can
well,
get involved this
definitely.
year and keep
Good
it going.
opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So,
Kids will love it.
I know,
Over
nice.
the years, have you seen it make a difference in your local community where you started?
Oh, it's made a huge difference.
Yep.
And as I say, it's one thing to see the rubbish removed, but it's the behavioural change. That's what we like.
Yeah.
And those people go home a bit tired, a bit dirty, feeling proud in themselves. They've done something for their country, something for the environment, and now they're looking for what else they can do.
Excellent.
That's a formula for growth.
Brilliant.
And you've picked up some really fun stuff over the years, haven't you?
I can't tell you all of it.
No, please don't.
But the one that really tickled my fancy was the door of the Valiant, the year that you needed one.
Yes, it was the right colour too.
Well, there you go. So you've had some interesting experiences over the years.
Yeah, what we're finding is that the size of the items is actually getting smaller
Yep.
over time. So some of the big stuff's all been removed. So we've had sites with pulled out cars and things like
Oh,
that
wow.
over the years. There was a site at the back of Manly Dam where they pulled out a whole heap of construction waste that had been dumped and refrigerators and things like that, white goods and things. But what we find now is it's mostly small stuff, and it tends to be packaging. So it's takeaway food stuff, it's the wrappers on various things, it's the bottles and cans. And what we want to do is try and move so that less of that's getting there in the first place.
Oh,
And that's a really important
Yep.
move. So there's a
That's
lot
the
of
behavioural
advocacy.
change clicks in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we can have plastic bags, single-use plastic bags taken out of the mix, that'll be one more item that's not going to get out there and damage the environment. Because it's not just an eyesore here. This is also really damaging our
So
wildlife.
it does come back to what Ian said about changing the behaviour. So
Yeah.
people should be taking their own reusable bags rather than
Yeah.
accepting the plastic bags
Yeah.
when they do their shopping. So every little bit helps.
Sure does.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, how's it got to change within the behavioral change?
Yep.
One of the best things that I've experienced within the community as well,
Yeah.
that we get the little kids involved.
Yeah.
That way, the behavioral change does not need to happen later on, because the kids
It happens from
it happens
from
from
the
a
ground up.
very
Exactly.
young age, and they're already ingrained with the habit of cleaning up.
Yep.
And we use all these tactics. For example, we get one of the the vests, and we get the XXL vest, and we get the children to wear it.
The larger
And,
vest.
it goes all the way from their shoulder to their feet, and
Yep.
they look amazing cute.
Yeah.
And when they're walking past, and it creates an environment of very healthy as well. So it goes from the child down, and that's one
It
of the
does.
things that that's
mean-
why the youth gets involved.
It's excellent, right? So I remember when I was younger, I don't remember recycling too much, but as we get older, all these systems come in place, the different coloured bins that the council provides us, they went from the loose ones to the big ones. And even now, my son's 2 years old, and he knows which one to put the cans in, and which
That's
one to
great.
put the rubbish in. So it's all about education. And
And often it's the children who lead the way too,
Yeah.
because they're doing a lot of this at school. So they'll come home, and we've seen instances and heard of instances where your children have gone shopping with an adult and have castigated the adult at the checkout for taking a plastic bag.
wow. No, it's excellent.
It's just not the dumb thing
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah, you've got a couple of things, you can hold them in your hand. So
That's right.
That's right.
where do you see the future going with Clean Up Australia Day?
I want to be redundant.
I can imagine. What do you hope? What are your hopes?
Well, the behavioural change is the thing that's really marching ahead,
Yep.
and that's an investment in the future.
Yep.
No doubt about that.
Oh, excellent. And Terry Ann, what are the plans for the organisation itself?
A lot of work is being done on the prevention. So we're working, unfortunately what happens in Australia is that waste management is state-based. So we have to go from state to state to state. So we're working our way through the list of things that we're working with various state governments on. So we've managed to, during the last 10 years, to see the introduction of the container refund scheme.
Yep.
Queensland will join in November.
Yep.
So that's one more state ticked off. And then we'll start working more closely with Victoria and Tasmania on what happens there. So they're the last two states for that one. The last state for plastic bags is New South Wales.
Wow. Last
So
one's
what we're
holding
doing
out.
there to overcome that is we're working with retailers.
Yep.
So in New South Wales we saw Harris Farm take plastic bags out of the mix. Coles and Woolworths and the big supermarkets are taking them out of the mix come 1st of July. So there's just different ways
Yep.
of coming to that end game, and that's what we will continue to do.
That's
So next in our sites, coffee cups, straws,
Yep.
all those things that are creating problems in our environment that we just need to keep working on. Let's get them out before they get
Yeah.
big.
We wanted a national move on this, but it wasn't to happen.
Ah.
So we said, okay, we'll just go state by state and we'll get you.
Yeah, that's it. So you're still making the progress, which is excellent.
Indeed we are.
Even state by
Just
state.
takes a bit more work.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. And Musafa, what about from our perspective with the Jamaat? What are our plans for the future with Clean Up Australia Day?
As we mentioned, Terry Ann mentioned earlier,
Yep.
that we're going to be working closely together for the pocket bin scheme as well. As far as the community and the youth is concerned, as Clean Up Australia Day grows, we will grow.
Excellent.
And our involvement will definitely grow as they grow as well. And whatever the initiatives that they come up with
Yep.
Terry, with Clean Up Australia, and we'll work closely together.
Yep.
They will have our full support, and I'll make
excellent.
sure guarantee the support
Yep.
of the community.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining us in today's program. Appreciate your time, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you
Okay.
all. Thank you.
Thank you. As we mentioned earlier, each Australian produces over 2,000 kilograms of rubbish every year. Now, to help reduce this, we've got to get our young kids involved from a young age to make sure that they're reusing, recycling at home, and having some behavioural change go through our communities to stop this rubbish being created in the first place. But unfortunately, if it's already ended up on the streets, our option is to get involved with Clean Up Australia Day with our local communities, our local sites, and to get this rubbish back off the streets. Thank you very much for watching. This is another episode of InfoMate from MTA International, Australia Studios.